Good morning and welcome to lecture number 7 of Total Quality Management. I am Rajiv Gupta. In today's class we will be talking about employee involvement, and this is sort of in continuation of the earlier two lectures where we were talking about problem solving and process improvement, because in order to be able to get people in the organization to work on improvement projects and or to solve problems, one of the things that is absolutely essential is to get the cooperation, more than cooperation, actually the active involvement of all the people in the organization. And therefore, from that perspective, employee involvement, or the term that is oftentimes used, is total employee involvement, or TEI. That is what we are going to be talking about in today's class, and essentially what we have laid out for the lecture is a brief recap of the last lecture, followed by an introduction to the various forms of employee involvement. Then in module number 3 we will talk about motivation, because motivation quite obviously is a very key part of what causes people to become actively involved or not involved. And if we do not understand that, it will be very difficult to get people to participate on their own and with enthusiasm. The next module we will talk about something which is quite a bit controversial, and that is with regard to performance appraisals, reward and punishment, because again this feeds into the whole idea of motivation, and it has an impact again on people's participation and involvement in the activities of the organization. And then finally we will summarize what we had covered in today's class. So getting started with the first module, which is a recap of lecture number 6, what we discussed in lecture number 6 was about improvement, and we said that improvement essentially consists of small incremental improvement or breakthrough improvement, where the small incremental improvement happens almost on a continual basis, almost on a daily or sometimes even many times during the day basis, whereas breakthrough improvement, which is generally much less frequent, requires much higher degree of investment, time and management involvement. That is what we tend to call the breakthrough improvement. And then we have other improvements which lie somewhere in between, and generally we see that companies need to be on the lookout for ways to improve their processes, because if they don't, there are always other companies on their tail trying to overtake them in terms of quality, cost, delivery, etc. And so in order to avoid being taken over, or I shouldn't use the word taken over, but overtaken by others, including their competitors, companies need to always try and find ways to improve from where they are, and find new and unique ways to do things better. We also saw some simple techniques such as process charting, which is a relatively useful technique to bring about mid-level improvements in the process. We didn't really talk too much about different ways to bring about breakthrough improvement, but to some extent what we talked about was the whole idea of managing change, because whenever we do any breakthrough improvement, we need to consider how to get people to accept that change, because managing change is not easy. It is not easy to get people to change the way in which they have been doing their jobs for a long time. And managers need to understand that coercion and just appealing to the individual's logic alone, that means to the right side of the person's brain, is generally not enough to convince people or to actually get them to actively embrace the change. What they need to do is to, first of all, coercion doesn't work at all, and secondly, logic has to be combined with showing people how it benefits them as an individual, and basically appeal to their emotional as well as the social side, so that along with understanding the reason for the change, they can see how it can benefit them on a personal level. Managers also need to be aware of the need to develop a critical mass of influential people who basically believe in the change itself, and these would be the people who would be required to convince others who are presently neutral or somewhat skeptical, to get them to support the change as well. The resistors are the ones who we cannot really expect to totally convert at this particular stage, but what we can best hope to do is to ask them to suspend their judgment for a while and be patient while we make the change as an experiment, and hope that the results of the experiment would be sufficient to convince the skeptics, or the resistors, that the change is in their interest. Then we talked about performance measures, and we said that performance measures need to be carefully selected, and we saw a number of different ways in which performance measures, or a number of different types of performance measures, and you have to make sure that the performance measures are few in number and focus on the key areas which affect the actual performance of the organization, especially with regard to their customers. We talked about quality costs, and we said that quality costs are basically appraisal costs, the costs of prevention, and basically internal and external failure costs. And management really needs to spend time to very clearly understand the basic costs of quality, so that they may position themselves quite appropriately in terms of the level of quality which is best suited for their operations.